So as you can see, the basement has prior construction for waterproofing, damp proofing. Somebody saw cut the line and put in a perimeter drain on the inside and put in a waterproofing system. You can see the effervescence of spalling on the wall. Spalling is just when corrosion occurs when water intrusion is happening from the outside of the structure, okay? And so this sump pump is pumping out water because we have probably a grading issue that we looked out outside, you know, that's never been corrected, but they did install this waterproofing system. So we're not going to comment on the beams or the integrity of the beams because we're a property inspector. What we are going to comment on is there's probably a transferable warranty. So we want to document that and make sure the buyer does their due diligence to request disclosure on these items. Now we're assessing the water heater. We're looking at the age. Water heaters usually last between 12 and 15 years. So we want to look at the brand and document that. So it's a Whirlpool water heater. It is a natural draft water heater, so that means it has a flue going up out of the home. We want to make sure that that flue has a proper pitch. We want to look at the shutoff valves, and these are called dielectric unions. We want to look at both of those and make sure that there's no corrosion. Here we have a jumper here, and then we do have some copper water lines kind of mixed in with the PEX. It is good to have 3/4 water lines about 18 inches above the flue. So I mean, if you know, that would be something we would document, that it should be 3/4 to about up around 18 inches. And then we do have our discharge valve here. But let's look at the age of this water heater. So this particular water heater is a 2010, and it is a 40 gallon. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the buyer knows that we're beyond the life expectancy, okay? So we're beyond the life expectancy with this particular water heater, and that we may want to look at a replacement, all right? I just want to take a picture of the furnace and showing the buyer that we took the cover off of the furnace, okay? So I was a heat and air conditioning technician for a very long time, and what I really want to do is I want to look at the sequence of operation. We've ran the furnace, we've done a temperature differential. Now I want to make sure that it's sized correctly for the house. I want to know the age because they're probably going to get a home warranty. So we really need to check it over really well, okay? So we're going to take a picture of the data plate and we're going to determine the age. Okay, so the furnace was manufactured in 2005. It's 110,000 BTUs, and it's a conventional furnace, okay? And so we want to make sure that we have a clean filter. You have your evaporator coil here. It doesn't appear to be any leaks or anything coming out of the drip pan underneath the evaporator coil. The furnace is 21 years old, so it is older. We want to look at the filter, and then we'll write a recommendation. The outside condensing unit has passed its life. Condensing units, according to the manufacturer, last for about 15 years. Furnaces, you can get about 25 years. But most of the time, and this is me speaking as a heat and air conditioning technician, you want to replace the actual furnace and the AC at the same time because it's going to be more cost effective. But at the end of the day, the buyer could, you know, just do the AC and the furnace later if they wanted to. We're going to document, you know, we got a clean filter, and it's a 20 by 25 for the buyer, and then we'll put all of this back together once we're, you know, leaving out of the home, okay? So I'm not really seeing anything. We've kind of shined our light in these different areas, but instead of using our eyes, let's use the thermal camera to kind of determine, is there anything going on in any of these spaces, all right? And we'll snap a couple pictures. We're going to scan this whole basement here just to make sure that we don't have anything going on. The last thing that we check with the electrical panel is we want to use our thermal camera to see if there's any anomalies. So here we're checking to make sure that there's no anomalies. We set our camera at 90 emisficity, okay? So that way we can look at the wires to see if there's any loose connections or any heating. Normally there's a UL listing on each distribution breaker set by that particular manufacturer, and it's usually between 40 degrees Celsius and 70 degrees Celsius, depending on the manufacturer and the type of breaker and what it's attached to, okay? So I don't see anything within the span that's overheating, so I believe we're good to close this back up. And we want to stay close to that bottom perimeter, right there where the baseboard hits the carpet, because that's where you're going to have the most opportunity for water intrusion or ponding water coming in from the exterior. And that really concludes it. We're going to check a few more outlets and kind of just, look around a little bit, maybe look for termites in some of the band boards and stuff. But really, that's the gist of a home inspection, folks.